Do that again. So Dean is very into the print side of things, and that's one of the things that I was really intrigued by, because, you know, from my point of view, coming from a business where I produced things like this back in the 90s, early 90s, to where we are now with social media and digital credentials. I don't know about you, but I find social media exhausting. And trying to keep up with it and trying to understand all the different types of platforms that there are. And I quite like getting stuff in the post. We don't get much in the post anymore, do we? And certainly from a business perspective, I, with my training, use a lot of lumpy mail, sending things to people, to it, not encourage them, but to give them a reason to actually get in touch with me. So Dean, I'd like to start by asking you, is print dead?
No, it's very much alive and well. It's not as widely and commonly used these days, but one of the reasons for using it is because it's not as commonly used. Because
Yeah.
if you get something in the post these days, it's a bit more of a rarity to get something nice in the post, apart from obviously your utility bills and things.
Yeah.
And that tactile experience it can add value, it can add
Yeah.
interaction with your business.
I think what a lot of people worry about is the cost of post. And I think we've got used to having WhatsApp messages, Facebook messages, emails, everything like that, which we don't have to invest in, to then suddenly come along and say, well, actually, you've not only got to print this and there's a cost involved with this, but you've got to put it in an envelope, there's a cost with that, and you've got to put a stamp on it, and there's a big cost of that as well. And I think, would you agree that actually what you are needing to look at with everything that we do is our return on our investment, the ROI, and that even though it's not costing you a lot of money to do a WhatsApp message or the Instagram or the Facebook or the Reels or the whatever they are, it's the emotional investment of procrastinating over whether something is good enough. It's the time that it actually takes you to learn everything. And if you looked at the return of your investment of your time and your emotion on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, wherever you're doing it, compared to actually sending a client maybe a welcome pack or a information pack, do you think, Dean, that actually the print comes out on top?
I think it's a bit of it's an old adage, it's horses for courses, and it depends on the nature of the communication. Now, if you're trying to broadcast a message out there, then obviously social media is quite a quick and efficient way of, we've got a gap in the diary today at 3 o'clock.
Sure.
You see that kind of thing happens quite a lot on social media. Now, that's quite a good way of filling those gaps and obviously making sure you're maintaining your full diary and your income coming in. So in that respect, it has its own merits. But I think there's also value in printed things, whether it's if someone was to gift a treatment to someone, there's that experience of opening an envelope and a nicely presented gift voucher inside, those kind of things. Some a particular tactile experience, isn't it, when you get a gift?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But it adds personality to the business by having different levels of interaction. So if someone comes and has a treatment with you, you might give them an appointment card for the next time, and that kind of keeps you fresh in their mind. It kind of ends the experience quite nicely. So not everyone has their diary on their phone, so particularly some of the older generation, that's a nice thing to think about for those kind of people, because they don't put it in, they're not used to iPhones and Outlook calendars and these kind of things. So there's different tactics you can apply for different reasons to use both.
So let's go right back to the very, very beginning, because one of the things that quite a lot of my students say to me quite early on in the course is, I've thought of my business name and I've created a logo, I've drawn it out on a piece of paper. And I don't know whether we have this image, well, I mean, I think there was actually something in one of my business magazines this month. Nobody likes your business name as much as you do. Nobody likes your yoga logo as much as you do, because you've given a lot of personal thought to why you're going to call yourself whatever it is that you're going to call yourself. And actually, your clients don't have that investment. They're looking at it from a very, very different perspective. So, Dean, can you talk to us a little bit about business names, because they're very marmitey, aren't they?
It can be, and yeah, you get different schools of thought in how you go about creating a name. You know, sometimes it's a quirky name that's nothing related to the business. You know, like Orange, for example. You know, that doesn't tell you anything about being a telecoms company. So it's really down to the type of business, and then mapping out how you want to present that business. So you probably start with, you know, the core point is, what is the product or service that you offer, and you know, treat it like a brainstorm. Get yourself a big sheet of paper, start putting these things down, because you'll start to sort of feel a connection between different points. So once you've outlined your products and services, you then start to think about your target audience. And that might be one particular niche, or it might be quite broad. So you might have to split that down into different personas of customers. So you can start to see how you're reaching out to the audience, and then think about the personality and style of the business and your unique selling points, the things you might do differently, the things that you want to stand out for. Those sort of key things that make you not just another therapist, but a bit more of a personality in your own right, and the business has personality that can resonate with people. And then really, what sort of feelings you want to invoke in people through your logo. Do you want them to feel a sense of calm, or a sense of refinement and quality? Different emotions that come into play with that, and where you want to be positioned in the market, whether you want to be, you know, perceived as value, or whether you want to be perceived as a luxury service. You know, starts to think of, you can sort of think about people like Marks and Spencer's, how they kind of map in the market with being an established, well-known brand, but they've got a bit of a discerning taste with a bit of quality. So you might sort of think about how some of the big players do that, how they map to their audience, and how they position themselves in the marketplace.
One
So
of
that'd be the initial sort of way I go about it. And, you know, are you a traditional kind of business, or are you perhaps a bit of a disruptor? Is that a part of the mix that you want to build into it? You know, are you bringing something new to market, whether it's a new treatment or a lesser known product?
I think this is the
those are things you want to
difficulty
factor into choosing a name.
Yeah, I think this is the difficulty that a lot of therapists have, is thinking outside the box, or thinking about how they actually can bring their personality into their treatments. Because a lot of people I speak to say, well, I just do the treatment, and I do the treatment on anybody who wants the treatment. And then when we start to actually talk about the types of people that they like to work with, or the types of environment that they are going to be doing the treatment in, actually they start to think, well, there are actually different types of people. And it takes quite a lot of time and effort, don't you think, to actually kind of work out what is it that I am actually doing. Have you got any tips on how you actually can nail down this persona that we are working on, rather than anybody who wants a treatment?
I mean, it's a lot of it plays into who your audience are, and how you would like to relate to them, and be perceived by them, and what are the sort of touch points that you will connect with those people. So whether it be online, or whether it's a leaflet or a flyer, or whether it's an online search and they find your website, there's different touch points you need to think about, and maybe some of the words that they associate with your kind of service. So whether, you know, in beauty, whether it's rejuvenation, or the glow of your skin, or, you know, radiance, or calm, vitality, those kind of words may factor into it, and that may be something that echoes through the name of your business, and through the style of the design that you put together. So obviously you'll come up with a name, but you might then want to combine that with an image. And then your values and principles.
As
part of that.
most of the audience here are going to be solopreneurs rather than businesses, or you've got a halo on the side of your face, Dale. Got some sun. Single businesses rather than a bigger organization. The actual person who is going to be doing the treatment, would you say that that is actually quite important to come through in your marketing and your name? I've got lots of people that are in our business building Facebook group, and sometimes I will look at their Facebook persona, and it's this image of, I don't know, I'm just going to be flippant at the moment, a lotus leaf and an angel, and a name like Aphrodite Complementary Therapies or something. And I can't see anything about the actual person behind that. And there's
Yes.
no personality that comes through. It's all very, hands off. Would you say that from a personal service point of view, that could be a potential problem in marketing? Or do you think that's a good thing, that you should remember maybe create this kind of image of what you are, that's all mystical, not mythical?
I think you can combine them. You can combine the both, because I think a professional image, however you slice it, a professional image is important. And I think with the content that you put together, you can bring the personal touch. So, where there may be a picture of yourself on some of the materials, introducing yourself, talking about your expertise, your experience, your training, your whole ethos towards your business. So you can bring the personal touch to it in that way. So you might even explain why you chose the name. It might be something that is part of your history that resonates, and that's why you chose it. Because it's your way of thinking. It's your ethos. It's part of your
Where would you
your
put
business.
that sort of information? I know that there are quite a few therapists that don't have websites. They only have Facebook pages, or they might have a landing page with MailerLite or something. Would you suggest that that is something that you put out there if you've got something? So my business name is Phoenix, and there is a very specific reason why I chose the name Phoenix. There were two reasons. Would that be a good thing for me to maybe write a blog about or have on my website?
Yeah, I think doesn't necessarily have to be front and center, because you don't want to be putting steps in the way of people coming onto your website and finding the services and making a booking. But I think there should be something there that if people want to find out more, it's an easy click on the About Us page, or maybe there's a hint of it in your introduction paragraph, and there's a means of clicking through to that from there if that's their inclination to find out more.
Yeah, and of course we're dealing with so many different people, aren't we? That have different preferences to wanting to know this about you, and other people really don't give a damn. They just want to know this about you. So trying to kind of meet all of those kind of learning styles, if you like, and personality types. Yeah,
and that's part of why a website is important, because if you're on social media, it becomes a doom scroll to find that information. Whereas if you're actually on a structured website, then there's a navigation system to take you to that information, and whether it's about you or it's about the services, they might land on your website and want to read up about the service that they've seen an advert for. They might not be familiar with it, so signposting in that respect is really important, because making it easy for them to just get that bit of knowledge that they need, maybe a couple of images that kind of set the tone. It can really establish the foundations of communication with that client, and lead to them either putting an inquiry through the website or picking up the phone and ringing in to make an appointment.
Okay, so back to business names. What about if somebody else has got the same business name as you? I mean, I called my business when we first started, which is 24 years ago now, Phoenix. And of course, there's everybody and his dog Has a business called Phoenix, from dust carts to healthcare things. So I mean, it's a very, very common name.
Yeah.
So you could be, forgiven. One of the things I find with the name Phoenix, which I never thought about, is that people will spell it incorrectly. They'll spell it EO rather than OE, and then wonder why they can't find my website, which is an
True, yeah.
interesting thought, isn't it? That, when you're creating a name, thinking about how other people can find it easily.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just that, but also how it sounds as well.
Mm,
Because there's different connotations in pronunciation as well that can steer people in one way or another.
mm,
I mean, my business is DV8 Creative
yes,
Solutions, and the name is DV and the number 8.
yeah.
And that, I mean, just to sort of quickly explain, my initials are DV, so DV8 came from that, and that's how my name was built out.
Clever.
Um, so pronunciation is part of it, and also you mentioned where other people have used the name.
Mm,
The best thing I can suggest with that really is, when you start to formulate these names, have a look online. Put it into the search, see what comes back, and it may be that there are some companies out there with the same name, in which case obviously you have to think about that, because that can impact your business particularly if they're quite nearby. But if they've got a strong presence online, that can knock you back because people wind up going to them instead of you. So it might be that you need to then fine tune that name. It may be just a slight change in the name, adding in a service name somehow, or a combined word somehow. Might be a way of doing it. But you can look on Companies House and see it's a good starting point as well, because if in the longer term you want to become a limited company perhaps, or register the name, Companies House is a good place to look. You can type in the name and see if it comes up there. And then after that, really, I would look at social media as well and see if there's anyone popping up there as well. Because the last thing with all of it is that you want to get down the road of, oh, I'm in love with the name and the design, and and then click on something and you find someone with the same name and something that looks quite similar, which is obviously a waste of time and energy and very disheartening. So it is well worth doing your homework in that respect.
I think also you need to have a look at what it looks like written down as well.
Yeah.
So I know that the word therapist is a real problem for search engines, because if you can break it down into the rapist, as an example, and there are some search engines that if you have therapist won't recognize it at all because of that.
Right.
So you have to look at how you can actually restructure your name to be something else. And that's not easy to see. So that's why it's quite a good idea to put the name in front of somebody else and say, what do you see from this? Yeah.
Absolutely. And some things can be culturally different as well. So you have to be a little bit mindful of that as well. Particularly, it can be in terms of color choice.
Yeah.
Some cultures find other colors, some colors more acceptable than others, and some have connotations of different things that you might not want to associate with your business.
And then of course font.
So it's finding that balance as well.
And font is another issue as well, isn't it? That you might love a beautiful scripted font, but actually it's not easy to read for a lot of clients. And if you want to be inclusive to allow all of your clients, no matter what their diversity is, you need to stick to certain fonts as well. And that's why I would imagine, Dean, having a professional give you guidance and support on that can really make a difference. Because if you saw somebody that was wanting a very difficult script in their literature, you'd call that out, wouldn't you?
It is. I mean, the thing with the font is it needs to be a little bit malleable in terms of, if you're going to put it on a signboard or you're going to put it on a business card, it needs to be scaled to maintain clarity. obviously to be readable, but it's obviously to be unmistakably yours. And sometimes I've dealt with clients in the past where they've kind of found an illustration they like, for example. And whilst it might be a nice illustration, sometimes the practicality of using that on multiple items, whether it could be signage, it could be business cards, it could be on a website, and it may be that you need to drop it onto a dark background, for example. Suddenly that could disappear because there's too much detail and it doesn't sit up off a dark background. So it's important to consider those aspects. And when I create a logo, I create it as what we call a vector logo, which basically, the short way of describing it is that it's mapped out with points, and as it's not just a image, I can scale the whole thing with. And I've had people come to me in the past and I've done my logo, and they send me this tiny little JPEG file, and then they ask me to create a big poster. It's not built for that, so it's important to make sure that when you do create your logo, that you get it done in a way that is scalable, so that you can have it on your clothing if you want it side of your car, you can have it on a business card, your website, all these different places. But if it's not in the right format, it then becomes a bit of a reverse engineering process, because you're trying to figure out how to make it so that it will scale.
I've made that mistake in my early days creating my own logos. We didn't even have Canva there, so goodness knows what I used, but whatever it was, probably Microsoft Works Publisher, probably. I think that's what I used to use in the day. And I wanted it for banner stands in particular. So I used to do a lot of ladies' events. I would go out to fairs, and that's how I built my first beauty business. And of course, I couldn't scale it. And eventually, I found a graphic designer that redid all my logos, and then I can use them anywhere that you need to be. So that is, whilst Canva is useful to a certain degree, it doesn't.
Yeah, I've had to do that for some people.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah. Would anybody like to ask a question? You can pop it in the chat, or you can come off live. I'm just thinking from your point of view of making this sort of more practical, if you've got any specific questions about any literature. If not, I'll ask my next question. Mandy.
Well, this is what my problem has been about sort of this year, is getting a logo done. And earlier on in the year, I was doing a gift certificate for someone, and I thought I had managed to do a logo on Vistaprint, but then when I tried to put it onto like a gift voucher, it was coming like taking up like a third of the page, and I spent the whole day on it, and I still didn't actually. Well, I managed to get it a bit smaller, but not what I wanted it. And I'm back to that stage again of wondering how to do it, because I'm just hopeless at all that technical stuff. And I have used Canva before, but because I was doing the gift certificate on Canva, so I was trying to get the logo from Vistaprint onto Canva. That probably made it even more complicated. So it's my problem's a lot to do with what sort of formats to use and how to make it scalable. And like when I save something, it doesn't seem to go to where I want it to go. It's going into like sort of photo viewer thing or something, and
it's probably the file that you're actually saving, the format of the file. Is that right, Dean? So I don't think getting a professional logo created is actually terribly expensive. So my recommendation would be invest in getting yourself a logo that will save you so much time and effort that actually you can put it wherever you want to put it easily at the drop of a hat. So that would be my go back to the basics and get that. It's a bit like your sort of your primary asset is your logo that you can put everywhere else, even on your wrist if you want to.
I did get one years ago. I got one done years ago. I had a friend whose daughter was doing, she had just finished her graphic design degree, but I used it on a few things, but now the years have gone by and it's not really what I want, and it's not the right shape, and so I'm back to the beginning again.
Well, I'll put you in touch with Dean. Maybe you can have a little chat with him afterwards and see if that's something that he can talk to you about. Thank you, Mandy. Dean, where I wanted to go now was to talk about go back to these leaflets and what type of things should be on the leaflets. Now, I asked you in the last email I sent you, do you still use the acronym AIDA for the structure of what should be in your adverts, your leaflets, your business cards, your anything that you produce? That's something that I was always taught to use. Is that still current? Is there something better? How does it, and for those people that have got no idea what I'm talking about with AIDA, would you like to explain what the structure of any type of marketing should be to be effective?
Well, it's essentially a funnel. So you think of it as a kind of an upside down triangle, and the top level is the wider reach. So essentially, to the masses, you're trying to build awareness. So things like a website, social media posting, leaflet drops, those kind of things are all kind of building awareness. And then the next level down is gaining interest. So it's where you start getting a bit of engagement, and it may be, like social media, where your posts are starting to get follows and likes, or people start to see your details online and click through to your website. And then obviously, then you start to build a rapport. You start to create a desire for your products and services, and people start to perceive your business as something of value to them. So that's awareness, interest, desire, and then action. So action is the part where they pick up the phone, they email you, they come into your shop, and take action, and book an appointment, use your services, buy your products. Those essential things, spend money with you.
I was going to say, I thought that sounded a bit crass. I was saying, give us your money, but that's what your marketing structure needs to be, doesn't it? Is that and each of those levels requires a completely different strategy of how you're going to do it, depending on the type of client that you want to work with and what the end result is. Because if the end result is that they're going to click on a shop and they're going to buy a product, then that's a very different journey. So we talk about the customer journey from first knowing that you exist to actually finding out about the services and what you can actually offer them, and the language that you use to help them understand how they can feel, because we're in a people business. We can't make claims. We can't say, come and have a reflexology treatment and you'll fall pregnant tomorrow. Absolutely not. But we can use a lot of awareness to help people realize that actually one of the reasons that their things are lacking in their life is because of things that reflexology, massage, facials can help support. So I think in our industry, the awareness is probably the most important part, because people need to understand it's you don't wake up one morning and go, oh, I'm going to have reflexology today. Well, I do. And I'm sure you do as well. Where can I get my next reflexology from?
Where it trickles into interest as well is it's also important to try and position yourself as an authority in what you do. So there's a little bit of giving in that process, in that you're demonstrating your skills, your awareness, you're demonstrating the benefits of what you offer. And sometimes it's giving a little free, in the sense of, this is what I'm about, this is how I can help you, I understand your problems, and this is what I can provide to provide a solution to that. So there is that, and that's where you start to get engagement, and it starts to move into desire, because they suddenly think, okay, I've got a good feeling about this person. They know what they're talking about. They understand my problems or what I'm trying to achieve. And so you start to resonate with those people, and they start to think, okay, they've demonstrated some skill here. I think I can trust them to go and have a treatment on my skin or whatever it may be. So it's building that with social media is a good way of doing that. Sometimes it's just an image and some text, but sometimes it's a short video, and that can add personality to your business as well. Takes a bit of getting used to. I'm not a great fan of being on video myself. I was a bit nervous about today, but as you get to know your customers, you start to get to understand what resonates with them, so you can then play to your strengths in that sense.
There are lots of quite ingenious ways of getting over whatever problem that you have. If you don't like working to the camera, there are lots of apps and lots of ways in which you can, even AI ways now, that you can actually have an image or a video of something happening. So you can create with just a normal camera, you doing a reflexology treatment or a bit of massage or a bit of facials, and you can have the audio over the top of that so that you're not actually having to speak to camera. So there are lots of really easy ways, or I say easy, you have to understand which bit of it you don't actually understand first, and then you have to work with that. But using this acronym, if you haven't written it down, do write it down. So remind us, Dean, you've got awareness, interest,
desire,
and action.
Yeah.
So you've got to find a marketing strategy that goes across all of those things, and they're going to be different things. And I do see quite a lot of people that go from the not even a full awareness, but just buy me, book here. And the people that will be looking at those posts, for want of a better word, don't have the awareness and they don't have the desire. You haven't built that trust up as well. So I think it is important to actually go through the process of what you're doing. And leaflets and business cards are just part of that. Websites, landing pages, mailing lists, newsletters. It does go on, doesn't it?
Yeah. But depending on the nature of your business, but in your line of work where you're interacting with people, where you're providing a treatment, there are several touch points in that process. And one of the things about having your logo and your branding set out from the start means that you can then apply it across all those touch points. And that is part of building your awareness. It's part of building your profile of your business and making you stand out and making you memorable. And that every time they come into contact with your business, it feels professional. It feels those considered aspects right the way through. So they found you on Google. Your logo appeared in your Google local search when they landed on your website. There again, there's your branding. Your branding goes across your website. They spoke to you. They got on well on a people level. You've done really well. When they walk into the premises, there's a logo somewhere. Whether you're working from a shop front or whether you're working from home, you might have a sign indoors, for example, as they walk into your property if you're working from home. But there'll be different aspects you can apply: name badge, clothing, stationery materials that you give them to take away with them, flyers and leaflets. It's just making that whole experience sing from the same song sheet. And if you've done your due diligence on your name and your logo, then it becomes a hell of a lot of an easier process to apply across all those things.
Yeah. What about registering domain names? Whether you are going to use it on a website or not, is that something sensible to do right from the beginning?
I would say so, yes, because at the end of the day, you're trying to protect your brand and your intellectual property. And in fact, over the years, I've had clients come to me, in the process of starting up a business, and we'll decide on the name, the logo, and we get to the domain names, and I say, okay, we want the .co.uk domain name. Fair enough, okay. But I would usually recommend to them to go for the .com as well to stop encroachment, because the last thing you want is to get yourself all set up, all logo and business going well, and then someone decides to buy the .com name and either compete with you or do something that is really negative towards your business. It could be any number of things online now. So it just gives you a little bit more protection in your space by buying the .co.uk and the .com.
Where do you recommend people go to buy? I know there are so many places that they can buy it, and I bought a domain name that there was the cheapest place that I could possibly find to buy this domain name, because I wasn't sure whether I was going to use it or not. So I bought it for something like, I don't know, £2.50 or something, and then decided I did want to use it, and I had to wait for 3 months before I could transfer the ownership to the hosting site that I was going to put the website on, and that was a little bit annoying. So a lot of people will get their websites from Healthy Hosts, Web Healer, Wix, GoDaddy, those sorts of places. Would you recommend that it's worth buying a domain name just purely from a domain name company like 123.reg, or is it okay to just go with the website that you might have with, just use Healthy Hosts as an example?
So the last bit you said there was go with who, sorry?
Healthy Hosts, or the other one is Web Healer, which is a little bit like Wix or GoDaddy. It's an all-in-one. You pay to get it created by them, and then you pay a monthly subscription.
Right, okay, I'm not familiar with those ones.
But my question was, if you then wanted to use that domain name but with a different hosting company, because you decided you want to create your own, would you be able to do that, or would you still have the same problem as that name doesn't actually belong to you? You'd have to get it transferred over to a different hosting company.
Yeah, I would always advise a bit of caution in that, because I mean, it shouldn't be withheld from you. At the end of the day, if you've gone to a company and they've bought it on your behalf, you've paid for it in a sense. But I would always advocate, if you can, just go out and buy the domain yourself from 123reg or one of the main players. The thing you have to be a little bit careful with some of the domain companies is that they do get you on the hook with a 99p first year for the domain name, and then the next year it's £30 or something like that. So you need to sort of look and see how it evens out, because some companies are more expensive than others. I mean, I tend to use a company called 20i. But 123reg have been around for years. They're not too bad. GoDaddy is quite a common one. But if you just use them as a registrar, then when you go to Wix or a web developer or another platform that you might be self-building, you can log into that domain registrar's website and put in, they call it a zone file. And essentially that tells domain name where the website is, and there's a series of references that go into that, which can point the domain name to the website, and it can point the domain to your email accounts. So you can then have, like mine is Dean at DV8 Create, so you can have your personal email on that domain name.
And I think that's actually really important. Again, we were talking about professional persona. At hotmail.com is not necessarily the best professional face. That's certainly
one of the things I would always recommend to my clients. I mean, think of it this way: you hand out a business card. The business card looks great. You've done your logo, and then they look at your email and think, it's at gmail.com. It kind of, it's a bit of a hole in the balloon, isn't it? It kind of deflates everything. It's not the real deal. It's missing something. And for what it costs to have an email, it could be one of your primary routes to communicate with clients. So it's very important to get those touch points, just all singing from the same song sheet.
So if any of my audience engaged you to organise a domain name, would you also guide them through how they could set up that email? Because I think that's another block for a lot of therapists, is that we're not terribly tech savvy, and we do look at all of this. And if we've got a 14-year-old son or niece or nephew or something, it becomes a lot easier. But if not, it's, well, how do I do these things? Would you then help them with that process as well?
Typically, that's what I do. I mean, some domain registrars, they have services you can bolt on. So you can have a very basic email. The way I operate is I set my clients up with a website, but I also set them up with a Microsoft email account, because they are what I call business class emails. They're going to synchronize between devices. You can synchronize contacts and calendars. So it makes life a bit easier in that sense. So you can pick up your phone and it's going to mirror your laptop. So that's one of the reasons why I do that, and because the capacity of those mailboxes is good as well.
And I suppose thinking about progressing businesses as well, if you then want to engage with a mailing organization and you've got a professional email address, will you find that the deliverability of those emails is going to be stronger? There's better security involved?
If you can associate it with a domain name and it's authorized through the registrar, which is, again, it's a bit of a code input into the zone area, which basically authenticates it and says that this is legitimate email.
Yeah.
It's not spam, it's actually from this business, and it's been verified by the owner of the domain name that this email is being sent. It's not someone sending out of an Outlook account and just spamming everyone. It's not Gmail. It's a legitimate source.
Because that's the other frustrating thing that I know a lot of therapists have come up against, is that they've spent a lot of time doing the awareness. They've got a mailing list. They've encouraged all of these people to register, to give up their email address, and they're sending them newsletters on a monthly basis. And when we've looked at actually how many of those have been delivered, how many have bounced, how many have been rejected as spam, it's a huge amount. So all of that work that you're putting into, developing that presence is actually just falling down the cracks because of your email address. So that's another, really important thing. If you're wanting to build a professional business, you need to behave like a professional person. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing. It's if you spend time and don't do things properly, people miss the point. So if you don't spend time and get your logo across everything, you're missing a trick there. If you're not setting your email up in the right way, you're not going to reach your audience.
No. By
the same token, there are means to build websites out there that are do-it-yourself kind of packages. To be fair, some of them are quite reasonable now. But if no one ever sees that website because you don't know how to optimize it to be found in local searches, you've wasted your time. So, it's getting that balance right. Do you speak to someone like myself, not blowing my own trumpet, but I've built websites for 16 years. So I know my way around building websites, and I know how to seek out the search terms that will help you get indexed by your product and service in locations and so forth, and the means of building out an online profile. So use the expertise if you can.
And am I right in thinking that there's the difference between a website designer and a website developer? One will make it look pretty and the other one will make it look functionable. And actually what you need is both of those things. You need to make it look lovely. So template driven ones are great, but they won't necessarily have the right words, the right key searches, the right SEO, linked alt images, alt tags with the images, those sort of things. And if you don't know that,
as a newcomer to, if you've never been in that world, you go onto a platform and you can sort of see there's a bit of a drag and drop thing, and you don't really know how you should really structure it to make it work for the web. You don't know what the user experience should be. And then the different aspects of SEO that are the different constituents of the website that make it attractive to Google. And Google looks at your website and says, right, I get it. I understand what you're about. I understand your location. I understand the services you offer, and I understand the audience you're trying to reach. And okay, so if someone searches these terms, I'm going to put you in those results. And that's essentially the trick of how Google works.
Yeah.
If you don't know how to play that game, you're kind of, you might as well be gagged, because no one's going to hear you.
Yeah.
So it's getting that balance, and that takes time, and Google changes the game. You know, I've been doing 16 years, and
Frequently.
Google, the fundamentals are more or less there, but there's been, you know, there's AI into the mix that now affects search results. There's social media, there's all these different aspects, and it's just finding the right points to pick up on and getting yourself in the mix.
Yeah, brilliant. There's so much to take on board, and you know, from a therapist coming in that just wants to do the treatments, just wants to work with clients and be happy, to actually have all of these different hats that you've got to put on. And I think the one thing, when I first started my business, my training business, which was 24 years ago, I was that person. I wouldn't give up anything to anybody. I did everything. And that's the one thing that I would absolutely say to myself: if you were doing it from scratch, get the help to do the stuff you either don't like doing, you're not good at doing, or you've got no idea of how to do it. Because it could really make the difference. Yeah.
And it should be considered one of the fundamentals, getting your branding right, because that is your whole persona of your business.
Yeah.
You know, and if people buy into it because it's done professionally, that opens a door. That gets them on the phone to you, that gets the engagement.
Brilliant.
So you know, it's the same way I hate accountancy. I stay as far away from it as I possibly can, because I'm a creative. My mind is not, I'm not interested in bookkeeping.
Yeah.
Apart from to make sure to know that it's working for me, I'm making money, of course. But
Absolutely.
you know, and I hire someone to do that because I would waste my time doing that when I could be out there, you know, making a success of my business and earning a living.
Yeah. Wonderful. So as always, there's lots to now think about, lots to go away and do. I will put all of Dean's information, but if anybody has got any questions that they want us to look at troubleshooting, then as always, into the Business Building for Therapists group, come on, put them in there. And if I don't have the answer to them, I will make sure that I get back to one of my professionals, experts that know the answer for you. So unless anybody has got any questions from this group, Dean, is there anything else that you wanted to say about the topic of business names and branding and marketing and stuff?
In all of it, really, try and be distinctive, try and make it a little bit personal, relatable, make it relevant. You know, think about what's going on in the industry and what the successful people are doing and how they're doing it, and you know, maybe take some lessons from that, but make it your own. And then from there, pick out your own style and persona, and you know, your unique selling points, and try and harness those within your name and your logo.
And I think talking to other people about it can be really valuable as well. And if you don't have anybody to talk to about it, then that's what we in the Business Building and the Therapy Learning Hub are all there to do, to help you, to be that extra pair of ears and sounding board. So do use us if you need to. And I wish you all a lot of luck. Do let me know. Send me a message. Let me know, you know, what you've managed to do as a result of this. But Dean, thank you very much. Thank you for your time.
I hope it's been useful to everyone.